The lawyer's office smelled like new paper and old leather. I sat very still in a chair that felt too big for my small body. My hands were iced from the late November wind. I had worn Michael's old gray scarf wrapped twice around my neck. It smelled faintly of him, soap, and the pine air freshener he loved. I wanted the smell to last forever. His lawyer, Mr. Reynolds, cleared his throat. He put a thin envelope on the desk between us. It was cream, the kind of paper people use for wedding invitations or secret notes. My name was written across the front in Michael's handwriting. I knew that handwriting better than my own. It had a small loop on the letter Y that he made the way only he did. When my husband passed, the lawyer said, "There's a letter he left only for you." He warned me not to open it in front of anyone. Those words fell like a stone. The room seemed to shrink. My heart beat in my throat. I could see the sunlight through the office window, thin and weak that late in the year. My mouth went dry. I had thought of many things since Michael's heart stopped beating in the hospital bed 2 weeks ago. I had pictured small, safe things. His hands, the way he tied his shoes, his laugh over a stupid TV show. I had imagined this letter, too, what it could say. I had imagined apologies and love notes and maybe, deep down, just simple instructions about the cat and the bills. I had not imagined the look on Mr. Reynolds's face. Careful, serious, a place where worry slept. "You should wait until you're alone," he said. He was very specific. I nodded because nodding felt like an action, and action is something the world can understand. I tucked the envelope under my jacket. It was heavier than I thought. It felt like the size of a small bird. That night I waited until midnight. I sat at the kitchen table under the soft lamplight. The house felt too full and too empty at once. Every corner held a memory. There was Michael's mug on the shelf, a chipped blue thing with a film of coffee inside. The cat, Pepper, curled at my feet. The TV hummed quietly with a late-night show I wasn't really watching. Outside, a plump moon watched over the street, the way it had watched over us the night we moved in. My hands trembled. I set the envelope on the table and put both palms over it like it was something fragile and alive. I thought of all the good nights. I thought of the day we met in that college parking lot when he offered me shelter under his umbrella. I thought of the time he pushed me on a swing because I said I was too old and he said you are never too old to be pushed. I thought of how gentle he had been when my mother died. I thought of how we had promised each other everything. I slit the envelope open with the tip of my thumb. The paper inside smelled like his aftershave. The first line was neat and the letter began like this. "I am so sorry for the secret life I kept from you." The moment my eyes read those words, the room tipped forward. The lamplight blurred into streaks. I folded the letter back, and it slid from my hands and slipped off the edge of the table. It floated to the floor and landed face down. I remember the sound it made, a soft slap that seemed too loud in my chest. I picked it up and saw only the last few words before my fingers shook so badly that the ink smeared. There was the word forgive and then something about you deserve the truth. My hands felt 2 sizes too big. I could not breathe right. My mind tried to fill the space with what I wanted, maybe a confession of something small, maybe an admission about a forgotten birthday. I did not want to imagine the worst. But the first line had already arrived like an arrow. I sat there in the quiet, and the cat rubbed against my leg as if to say that life must go on. Outside a car passed, and the sound was ordinary and wrong. And then I heard a sound I would never forget. The old grandfather clock in the hallway struck midnight, one slow, heavy bell. I wanted to read the rest. I wanted to burn the letter. I wanted to call Mr. Reynolds and scream until someone answered. Instead, I folded the paper back into the envelope, slid it into the pocket of Michael's old jacket, and went to bed with the light on. Until midnight, I had thought the highest moment would be the letter opening itself. But it was only the first flash of lightning. The thunder that followed would break things in a way I wasn't ready for. The weeks before his death had been a slow falling. Michael had been in and out of the hospital for months. Tests and whispers and the sterile smell of doctors' rooms had become our normal. He had always been careful about the kind of man he was. He worked as a school counselor. He helped kids who felt invisible. People asked me how I could be so lucky to have someone like him. I would smile and say, I know, because luck was easier than the messy truth of promises. He listened when I talked. He fixed the leaky sink. He always remembered when I wanted the small things, extra napkins at a dinner, a quiet cup of tea before bed. He left notes in my lunch sometimes. You're brave. Love, M. The funeral was full of people who said the right things. They wore soft faces like they were keeping a secret that we all agreed not to name. There were casseroles and hugs and envelopes that smelled of sympathy cards. Mr. Reynolds had come to the funeral and stood at the back with his hat in his hands. Later, at his office, he had told me that Michael had been very organized. He had a will, assets, and a life insurance policy. He had asked that Mr. Reynolds keep the letter sealed until I was alone. How long had he written it? I asked. A few weeks before, Mr. Reynolds had said. He told me it was something he needed to say. Something only you should know. Now, as I lay in bed that first night with the letter heavy in my jacket and my chest hurting in a way that felt like someone squeezing a fist around my ribs, I tried to imagine what could be so important. I wanted simple things: pay the cat's food bill, call Aunt Mary about the house key. I wanted a map that would keep me safe. I didn't want a map that led toward detours and empty rooms. The days after the funeral drifted like fog. I woke up and moved through them by habit. I sorted through his shirts, folded them the way he liked, and put them away in drawers that smelled like him. I opened the laptop he used and tried to read the journals he wrote in the Notes app. There were entries about school meetings and kids who were struggling. There were lists of books to buy. There were plans for the garden he always meant to plant. There was nothing that looked like the start of a secret life. Still, the letter hummed in my pocket like a tiny moth. One afternoon, a woman came to the door. She introduced herself as Lisa, a neighbor from 2 streets over. She had a small face and a voice that softened her words. She had known Michael through a school project last spring. I am so sorry, Emily, she said. She hugged me the way people hug when they don't know what to say, arms tight and then away. Thank you, I said. It's been hard. We all loved him, Lisa said. He was special. She lingered for a while, talking about different memories, the way he would bring extra coffee to staff meetings and stay late to help students. She left before dusk, and I felt better for a moment. People liked to put him on a pedestal. Sometimes that made him look like a saint, and not like a man who forgot to put socks in the laundry basket. But I liked him best when he was ordinary: messy hair from sleeping in, coffee on his shirt, the small, ridiculous jokes that made me laugh until I cried. That was the man who had married me in a little chapel with mismatched chairs and too many lilies. That was the man who had told me, when it rained on our wedding day, we're just getting bonus water. The memory was a warm place I could retreat to when the world felt too sharp. Days became a sequence of small chores and the letter inside the jacket. I found comfort in simple things: Pepper's soft purr, the way the sun slanted across the kitchen in the morning, the stack of our old DVDs in the living room. I started cleaning out the drawers slowly because doing something with my hands made the pain less loud. Each night, I would hold the envelope and tell myself I would open it the next day. One morning, while I was making coffee, the phone rang. It was Mr. Reynolds. I'm sorry to bother you, he said. But there's been a development. My stomach dropped. What happened? There was a call today from a woman who says she knew Michael. She's asked to meet. She said she has information that might be relevant to the estate. Who is she? I asked. My voice felt thin. I don't know her name yet. She did not leave one. She asked me to call you if I wanted to speak to her. She sounded very insistent. I thanked him and hung up slowly. Insistent. That word landed on my skin like cold rain. I thought of the first line of the letter and how it felt like an open door. I told myself not to panic. I told myself that maybe the letter was about something small, and this woman was a neighbor who had once borrowed sugar. I told myself a lot of things that were not true. That night I sat at the table with the envelope in front of me. I opened it to the second line and read more. The handwriting was the same, steady, careful, the way he wrote when he wanted to be precise. The letter said, I have lied to you about who I am. I asked for silence because I was trying to fix things. I never wanted to hurt you. My chest felt hollow. The words did not explain anything. They were only an echo of what I now knew to be possible. I could feel the room tilt again. I folded the paper and went to the window. The streetlights made little halos on the wet pavement. I thought of all the times he had promised me simple truths. I will pick you up at 6. I will not forget. Now those promises sounded fragile. The next day, the extreme event came like a storm. The mail carrier left a small box on my porch. I opened it with shaking hands. Inside was a flash drive taped to a handwritten note. Play this. A friend. There was no name. The handwriting looked like someone trying not to be noticed. My breath hitched. I felt as if someone was standing behind me, waiting for my next move. I could have ignored it. I could have thrown it away and pretended the world remained the same. But the flash drive sat there, heavy and cold, a new kind of secret. I picked up my old laptop, the one Michael loved, and pushed the drive into the slot. The file was obvious, for Emily.mp4. My throat tightened. I pressed play. The video began with a man sitting in a dim room speaking directly into the camera. The man looked like Michael, but wore different clothes, and his shoulders sat in a way that felt unfamiliar. He smiled a small, practiced smile and nodded once. Then the screen cut, and a woman appeared in the frame. She was not me. She had a quick laugh and eyes that looked like they knew how to hide things. The camera focused on her hand as she brushed her hair back. The audio was soft, and then Michael's voice, Michael's voice, said something that made the cup in my hands feel suddenly too heavy. And I promise you, I'll make it right. I don't know how to tell Emily, but you know how careful she is. Tell her I'm sorry. The woman laughed, and the scene changed to them at a dinner table in a restaurant I had never seen before. Michael held her hand. He looked at her the way he used to look at me on our best days. My vision blazed. I could not hear anything but a distant ringing, like a bell underwater. The video showed more, a room with a door that had a number I did not recognize, a small apartment with plants and a coffee mug with a different name on it. My hands went numb. The man who spoke at the start of the video, the one who looked like Michael, now said things I had only ever heard in whispers. We'll keep it quiet. We'll keep it clean. His voice had a softness when he spoke to her, the same softness he used for me but shifted toward someone else. I did not watch the rest. I could not make my eyes focus on the screen. I felt sick, as if I had swallowed cold and it had settled in my bones. The house, our house, felt suddenly like a stage where I had been rehearsing for a play I did not know I was in. The video ended, but the sound stayed in my head like a stuck record. I stood up and Pepper ran to my legs, purring, innocent and hungry. Outside, the neighbors' lights were on. Inside, my life had cracked open. I locked the laptop and shut down the screen with hands that would not stop shaking. I pressed the flash drive into the palm of my hand and felt the edges like they were small teeth. Then the doorbell rang. I froze. No one had come to the door since the funeral except for people bringing casseroles. The ring was sharp and urgent. My heart pounded in my ears. I could not tell if the sound made me brave or more afraid. Slowly, I walked to the door and peeked through the peephole. A man stood on the porch. He wore a dark coat and hat pulled low. He held an envelope in his hand, the same cream paper as the letter Mr. Reynolds had given me. His face was half in shadow. He seemed to be watching the house like someone counting steps. For a moment, I could not breathe. The world held itself to watch what I would do next. I slid the bolt open, my hand already cold. The man's eyes met mine, and for an instant I thought I saw recognition. He pushed the envelope toward me without a word. My name was on it in my husband's handwriting again. From Michael, he said quietly. He told me to bring this if you would open the first one. My fingers closed around the envelope. Inside, another note. Do not trust everyone. Not even the letters. The man tipped his head once and walked away into the night like he belonged to other streets. I closed the door and leaned against it. The envelope trembled in my hands. The flash drive was cold at my side. The letter in Michael's handwriting sat in my pocket like a second heart. Something had shifted. The shape of my life had changed direction and now pointed toward a place I could not see. I had read the first line, and it had been a bright, terrible slice of truth. Now there were new flashes coming faster. A stranger on the porch, a secret video, a warning. I sat down at the table again. The lamplight felt smaller, as if afraid to shine. Pepper hopped into my lap and looked at me with the trusting eyes that had known only me. I stroked her fur and tried to slow my breath. I still had the letter in my pocket and the first line burned in my mind. I wanted to read the rest. I wanted to know everything and nothing at the same time. I wanted Michael to be the man I had loved. I wanted the world to fold back into the easy shape it had been. But now I knew better than to believe in simple things. The letter had started a chain that I could not stop. I had opened the first door. Behind it were rooms I had not imagined, doors I had never noticed. I set the envelope down on the table, the one with Michael's handwriting. I put the flash drive beside it and the stranger's note on top. The pieces lay on the wood like a small crime scene. The clock ticked. The house breathed. I decided then that I would not read the rest tonight. I would not let the dark devour me in one sitting. But as I sat there, the word forgive from the letter hovered like a promise and a dare. A sound came from outside, a car door closing, the muffled thump of someone heavy stepping away. I pressed my forehead to the cool window pane and stared into the night. The house had secrets now. I could feel them moving. My heart felt both cracked and steady, like something preparing to step into a storm. I gathered the letters and the flash drive and put them in the kitchen drawer under the forks, where no one would look. I turned the key in the lock twice and checked the windows. Then I sat on the couch with Pepper and tried to make my hands still. Somewhere inside me, something had changed. The man I had loved had confessed to something in the first line of a letter. A stranger had delivered a warning. A video had shown me a life that might be true. I could not sleep. I could not pretend these things were not happening. The next day would bring more questions and, probably, more answers. I wish I could tell you I felt brave. I did not. I felt tired in a way I had never been before. Outside, the night held its long breath. Inside, I felt the beginning of a long road opening beneath my feet. Then, as the house settled and the clock ticked, something dropped at the back door, not a sound like paper, but a heavier, quieter thing. I stood up slowly. My stomach flipped. I walked to the back of the house where the kitchen looked out on the small yard. The moonlight made the grass silver. On the step lay a small box, tied with twine. On top of it, a single Polaroid photo showed Michael smiling at the camera, but not at me. I picked up the photo. He was holding the same woman from the video. They looked happy in a way that stole my breath. The caption on the back read in Michael's handwriting, "I didn't know how to stop." My hands went cold. The world narrowed to that sentence. The box crinkled in my fingers. This was the extreme event that closed the chapter, the moment when everything I had believed about Michael and the life we shared had been thrown forward into a new shape. I stood there at the back door with the Polaroid in my hand and the house behind me breathing like a sleeping animal. The night outside felt too large and too full of possibility. I did not open the box. Not yet. I let the photo tremble in my hand and watched the moon make a silver line across Michael's face. The confession on the first line had been only the beginning. What came next would change everything I believed. The box sat on the kitchen step like a small, patient animal. I had not opened it the night I found it. I had left it there, breathing in the cold November air, while I tried to hold myself together inside. When morning came, the house felt different. The sun slid across the floor like a ribbon, but the light could not warm the places that hurt. Pepper wound around my legs and meowed, asking for food and attention in the kind way animals do when people are sad. I pushed a chair to the step and sat down. My hands were still shaky. The Polaroid looked up at me from my palm with Michael smiling at another woman. The handwriting on the back said, "I didn't know how to stop." I read it again and the words sank in like cold water. It felt like a small thing to do, to open the box. But even small things can change a life. I untied the twine. The sound it made, a soft, loose snap, felt too loud in the empty morning. The lid lifted. Inside were things that were small and ordinary and, together, made a map of secrets. There was a locket the size of a coin. Inside the locket was a tiny picture of the woman from the Polaroid. Her hair was different in the locket photo, pulled back, softer lighting. There was a folded receipt from a cafe in a city name I didn't know, dated 3 months ago. There was a key on a plain ring and a business card with an address that I'd never seen before. There was a small spiral notebook with sketches and a list of dates. Tucked between the pages was a hospital bracelet with Michael's name on it and the date, 2 weeks before he died. My breath stopped. For a moment, the kitchen air turned thick. Pepper jumped up on the counter and batted at the locket, making it click open and closed. I held Michael's hospital bracelet like a clue in a mystery I had never meant to be part of. The date on it was close to the day he had been in the hospital for tests. Close enough to make my stomach drop. Why had he been back in the hospital? Why had he been anywhere without me? Why had he kept this from me? The notebook had a poem, a few phone numbers, and the things he wanted to say someday. One page had one sentence written in Michael's careful script: "I am scared to lose everything. I am scared to tell Emily." The rest of the page was blank. I felt two different things at once. One part of me wanted to call Mr. Reynolds and throw the box at him. The other part wanted to sit down and read every scrap of paper until the truth spilled out like water. I sat down at the table and opened the notebook. My eyes moved over the handwriting like a person following footprints in snow. Under the spiral was a note I had not noticed at first. It was folded small and neat. I opened it. The paper smelled faintly of his aftershave, the same scent that had been on the envelope Mr. Reynolds had given me. The note read, "If you're reading this, I failed to stop. I'm sorry. M." I pressed my thumb to the ink and felt the indentation of his handwriting. I rubbed my thumb and could not stop the tears that came. They were slow and quiet at first, then faster and hot against my cheeks. Pepper settled on my lap and let me cry into her fur. After I cried, I called Lisa, the neighbor who had come the other day. She answered on the second ring. "Emily," she said, gentle and surprised. "Is everything okay?" "No," I told her. The sound of my voice surprised me. It was smaller and rougher than I expected. "I found things. I need to talk." She arrived 20 minutes later with a thermos of tea and one of those faces that are made for holding people up. She put the thermos on the table and sat down. I showed her the Polaroid and the bracelet and the locket. She did not gasp. She did not make a judgment sound. She sat very still. "Oh, Emily," she said at last. "I saw Michael with that woman once. I didn't want to tell you. I thought it would hurt you. Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. The question sounded sharp. Lisa touched my hand. "I thought he was just helping someone. He always did that. He was kind to everyone. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't know." We drank tea and talked slowly. Lisa told me small stories about Michael at school, how he stayed late for a student, how he brought treats for the staff during summer trainings. She told me about the way he had looked tired sometimes, shoulders slumped in a way that made her worry. She did not know about the box. She had never seen the Polaroid. The more I learned, the more I felt like a person who had been walking through fog and had suddenly found a doorway. I had always believed Michael to be a simple man who loved me plainly. That belief was not a lie, it had been true in many ways. He had loved me with the small, daily things. But believing does not mean knowing everything. A week passed. I started to do small things that made me feel like I was moving forward. I walked Pepper each morning on the same route we used to take together. I cleaned the garden and found the packets for seeds that Michael had meant to plant. I sorted his shirts, but I did not donate them. They felt too much like pieces of him. At night, I would sit with the box next to me and read the notebook by the lamp. Some pages were empty, and some were full of small, ordinary thoughts, grocery lists, phone numbers, a doodle of a dog. On one page, in a margin, there was an address, the same address on the business card. It was a place in a town an hour away. The address became a small, burning thing in my chest. I told myself not to go. I told myself that it would be better to speak to Mr. Reynolds and let him handle it. I told myself that people were messy and that maybe this was the end of something and not the start of something worse. But the way the note had said, "If you're reading this," I failed to stop, kept returning. I wanted to know what he had tried to stop. I wanted to understand what he had kept from me. I wanted to see it for myself. On a cool Tuesday morning, I drove the hour to the town with the address. The road out of our neighborhood ran through long fields, and the sky was a wide, pale blue. Lisa called before I left and told me to be safe. I told her I would be. I mostly meant that I would be careful with my heart. The building at the address looked like a place someone would love to forget. It was small, with a faded awning and a mailbox that said Unit 4. The key from the box fit the lock. My fingers had a mind of their own as they turned it. The door opened on a room filled with soft light and the smell of coffee. There were plants on the windowsill and a small stack of books on a table. It was clean in a way that made my chest ache. On the kitchen table, under a mug, lay a stack of photos. I picked one up with hands that trembled. There were pictures of Michael and the woman smiling, casual, not hiding their faces. One photo showed a small pair of baby shoes the size of my palm. My eyes jumped to the date written on the back. It was recent. Too recent. I sat down on the couch and my head spun. The apartment felt like a place I had no right to be. My stomach knotted. I heard the front door click behind me. Hello. The voice was soft and careful. I did not turn right away. I wanted to pick up the photos and cram them into my pocket and run. My feet moved like they were heavy. A woman walked in. She was the one from the photos. She had the same laugh lines around her eyes. She looked at me with a face that was not surprised, but not unguarded either. She held her hands out the way people do when they want to show they are not a threat. You found the box, she said. Her voice was small. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things worse. Who are you? I asked. The question came out thinned, raw. My name is Sarah, she said. I knew Michael. We were together. Her voice shook a little. I didn't know he was married at first. When I did, I asked him about it. He said he loved you and he loved me in different ways. I know that sounds wrong. I know how terrible that must sound. I'm sorry. You knew and you stayed? I said. The words cut like a small wind. I didn't stay to hurt you, she said. He told me to keep quiet. He said he would tell you when he was ready. He said he would leave. I thought he would. But then he got sick. I thought he would tell you then. He never did. She sat down across from me. Her hands trembled as she wrapped them around her own mug. There were small lines of worry at her eyes. She looked young and also older than her years. She had the tired look of someone who had loved in secret for a long time. Why would Michael keep this? I asked. Because he was scared, she said. He was scared of hurting you. He was scared of losing the life he had. He thought he was doing the right thing by trying to keep both. He thought he could fix it later. He said he would tell you when he knew what to do. He was always trying to fix things. No, I told her. The sound of my voice surprised me. It was smaller and rougher than I expected. I found things. I need to talk. She arrived 20 minutes later with a thermos of tea and one of those faces that are made for holding people up. She put the thermos on the table and sat down. I showed her the Polaroid and the bracelet and the locket. She did not gasp. She did not make a judgment sound. She sat very still. Oh, Emily, she said at last. I saw Michael with that woman once. I didn't want to tell you. I thought it would hurt you. Why didn't you tell me? I asked. The question sounded sharp. Lisa touched my hand. I thought he was just helping someone. He always did that. He was kind to everyone. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I didn't know. We drank tea and talked slowly. Lisa told me small stories about Michael at school, how he stayed late for a student, how he brought treats for the staff during summer trainings. She told me about the way he had looked tired sometimes, shoulders slumped in a way that made her worry. She did not know about the box. She had never seen the Polaroid. The more I learned, the more I felt like a person who had been walking through fog and had suddenly found a doorway. I had always believed Michael to be a simple man who loved me plainly. That belief was not a lie, it had been true in many ways. He had loved me with the small, daily things. But believing does not mean knowing everything. A week passed. I started to do small things that made me feel like I was moving forward. I walked Pepper each morning on the same route we used to take together. I cleaned the garden and found the packets for seeds that Michael had meant to plant. I sorted his shirts, but I did not donate them. They felt too much like pieces of him. At night, I would sit with the box next to me and read the notebook by the lamp. Some pages were empty, and some were full of small, ordinary thoughts, grocery lists, phone numbers, a doodle of a dog. On one page, in a margin, there was an address, the same address on the business card. It was a place in a town an hour away. The address became a small, burning thing in my chest. I told myself not to go. I told myself that it would be better to speak to Mr. Reynolds and let him handle it. I told myself that people were messy and that maybe this was the end of something and not the start of something worse. But the way the note had said, "If you're reading this," I failed to stop, kept returning. I wanted to know what he had tried to stop. I wanted to understand what he had kept from me. I wanted to see it for myself. On a cool Tuesday morning, I drove the hour to the town with the address. The road out of our neighborhood ran through long fields, and the sky was a wide, pale blue. Lisa called before I left and told me to be safe. I told her I would be. I mostly meant that I would be careful with my heart. The building at the address looked like a place someone would love to forget. It was small, with a faded awning and a mailbox that said Unit 4. The key from the box fit the lock. My fingers had a mind of their own as they turned it. The door opened on a room filled with soft light and the smell of coffee. There were plants on the windowsill and a small stack of books on a table. It was clean in a way that made my chest ache. On the kitchen table, under a mug, lay a stack of photos. I picked one up with hands that trembled. There were pictures of Michael and the woman smiling, casual, not hiding their faces. One photo showed a small pair of baby shoes the size of my palm. My eyes jumped to the date written on the back. It was recent. Too recent. I sat down on the couch and my head spun. The apartment felt like a place I had no right to be. My stomach knotted. I heard the front door click behind me. "Hello." The voice was soft and careful. I did not turn right away. I wanted to pick up the photos and cram them into my pocket and run. My feet moved like they were heavy. A woman walked in. She was the one from the photos. She had the same laugh lines around her eyes. She looked at me with a face that was not surprised but not unguarded either. She held her hands out the way people do when they want to show they are not a threat. "You found the box," she said. Her voice was small. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to make things worse." "Who are you?" I asked. The question came out thinned, raw. "My name is Sarah," she said. "I knew Michael. We were together." Her voice shook a little. "I didn't know he was married at first. When I did, I asked him about it. He said he loved you and he loved me in different ways. I know that sounds wrong. I know how terrible that must sound. I'm sorry. You knew and you stayed?" I said. The words cut like a small wind. "I didn't stay to hurt you," she said. "He told me to keep quiet. He said he would tell you when he was ready. He said he would leave. I thought he would. But then he got sick. I thought he would tell you then. He never did." She sat down across from me. Her hands trembled as she wrapped them around her own mug. There were small lines of worry at her eyes. She looked young and also older than her years. She had the tired look of someone who had loved in secret for a long time. "Why would Michael keep this?" I asked. "Because he was scared," she said. "He was scared of hurting you. He was scared of losing the life he had. He thought he was doing the right thing by trying to keep both. He thought he could fix it later. He said he would tell you when he knew what to do. He was always trying to fix things." Her words felt like thorns that pricked me again and again. She sounded like someone who had been hurt, too, and maybe I wanted her to be the villain even while I understood she had been a person in pain. We talked for hours. She told me about the little apartment, the baby's shoes, the ultrasound photos folded in a drawer. She told me that Michael had been there the week before, that he had been pale and tired, but he had laughed with her like he used to laugh with me when the world felt brighter. She showed me messages on her phone where he had written, "I'm so sorry and I don't know how to do this." When she mentioned the hospital bracelet, my hands went cold. "He went back to the hospital?" I asked, my voice small. "He was there," she said. "He told me it was a checkup, but he had been asked for more tests. He told me to keep the baby's things ready. He said he didn't want you to be hurt. He said he was trying to make sure everything was okay before he told you." Tears filled my eyes. I felt angry and sad and small. It was like being split in two. We sat quietly after that. Pepper slept on the couch between us, sensing the sadness like a rainstorm. Outside, the afternoon sky turned soft. The apartment smelled like coffee and the old paper of the photos. Sarah stood and gathered up the pile of photos. "There's more," she said slowly. He had a storage unit. He told me he put things there so they wouldn't get lost. He gave me the number. She handed me a key tag. On it was the unit number. There was also a note tucked under the tag. It was in Michael's handwriting and smelled faintly of him. The note said, "If I can't do this, find the truth. Forgive me." My hands went cold. I had wanted to know why. I had wanted to understand. The storage unit felt like a door that led deeper into the forest. I drove back with the key tag in my pocket and the photos pressed into my bag. The light was thin and the road smelled like rain. When I got to the storage place, it was a small cluster of metal doors under a gray sky. The unit number matched the tag. My hands shook as I turned the key and opened the door. Inside, boxes lined the walls like small mountains. There were books, a folded stroller, a rocking blanket, and a small wooden chest that looked like it had been made for a child. On top of the chest lay a tiny worn shoe. It had Michael's initials carved into the leather. My breath stopped. I smelled the sharp scent of dust and something else, a faint trace of aftershave. I reached for the shoe. The leather was soft from use. Underneath the shoe, there was a folded envelope. On it, Michael had written, "Open when I'm gone." My hands shook so badly that the paper bent. I reached into the envelope and found one thing, a slip from the hospital, stamped with a date 2 weeks before he died. Next to the slip was a small paper bracelet with a name on it and a date. The date matched the bracelet in the box at home. A noise made my head snap up. The storage door behind me slammed. I was alone with boxes and the tiny shoe and the slip of paper like a small truth. For a moment, the unit felt too small and too hot. I put the slip in my pocket and grabbed the shoe and the envelope and started toward the door. Then something moved in the dark corner of the unit, a shadow that was not a shadow. A shape shifted, and a voice I did not know whispered my name. "Emily." I froze. The sound of my name in that place, said low and close, made the air go thin. The door was still closing, making a long sucking sound as the wind pulled at the metal. My heart slammed against my ribs. I could feel the weight of everything, the Polaroid, the box, the bracelet, the baby's shoe, drop inside me like stones. The truth had opened its mouth and breathed out things I did not want to hear. The voice spoke again, closer this time. It was not Michael's. It was not Sarah's. It was someone else, someone who sounded like they had been standing in the dark, waiting for me to find the door. The chapter closes with me standing in the storage unit, the envelope heavy in my hand, the small shoe cold as if it held secrets, and a voice in the dark that knew my name. I could not see who it belonged to. My legs trembled and I pressed my back against the cool metal wall as the door hissed shut. The next step, the step I did not know if I wanted to take, was on the other side of that voice. The storage unit door clicked as it sealed shut, the metal vibrating under the wind. The sound echoed in the narrow space, bouncing off the boxes and the cold floor. My heart thudded so loudly I could hear the pulse inside my ears. The voice, the one that had whispered my name, did not speak again right away. It lingered in the space like a cold breath. I swallowed hard. My hand tightened around the baby's shoe until my knuckles hurt. The envelope in my other hand felt too light, as if it might float away. I forced myself to look toward the corner where the shadow had moved. "Who's there?" I whispered. My voice cracked. I hated how small it sounded. A soft shuffle answered me. Then a man stepped forward, slowly, into the thin band of sunlight that leaked through the small crack under the door. He was older than Michael by at least 20 years. His beard was gray around the edges. His jacket was worn at the sleeves. His eyes had the same shape as Michael's. He held his hands up, palms open, like someone approaching a frightened animal. "You don't know me," he said softly. "But I knew Michael." I felt the world tilt again. "How do you know my name?" "Because he talked about you," the man said. His voice wavered. "All the time." The pain in my chest sharpened. It was strange hearing that from a stranger standing in a storage unit full of secrets. I took one step back. The metal wall pressed cold against my spine. "Who are you?" I asked. He took a deep breath, as if the words were heavy. "My name is Andrew," he said. "I'm Michael's father." My stomach dropped. "That's not possible," I said automatically. "Michael told me his father died when he was a child." Andrew nodded slowly. I know. He told everyone that. He had his reasons. I shook my head so hard the world blurred. No, no, he wouldn't lie about that. Not something that big. Andrew's expression tightened. Not angry, just sad. A tired kind of sad. Michael wasn't just living one life, Emily, he said quietly. He was living several. And he didn't know how to keep them from falling on each other. The words swirled inside me like smoke. I felt my legs weaken and slid down until I was sitting on the cold floor. The storage unit smelled like dust and old paper. Andrew crouched down but kept distance, like he knew stepping closer would break something delicate. I didn't know he had someone else, I said. Or a baby. Or, my voice cracked. Or you. Andrew's face softened. He never meant to hurt you. I let out a bitter laugh. He did a terrible job then. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence seemed to thicken the air. I stared at the baby's shoe, the envelope, the boxes around us like a museum of Michael's other life. Why are you here? I asked finally. Why now? Andrew lowered his gaze. Because I promised him. My breath caught. You promised him, what? To explain, he whispered. If he never got the chance. The cold metal floor stung through my jeans. My palms were sweating. Explain what? I asked. He looked around the storage unit with a painful familiarity. This place, this isn't just his. It was mine first. Michael used to come here when he was a teenager. He'd sit and draw in that little notebook. He said it was the only place where he could think straight. My throat tightened. I had never known that version of him. I wasn't a good father, Andrew admitted. I left when he was young. I came back when he was grown. Tried to fix things. He forgave me, but he never trusted himself to be honest with people after that. He always thought the truth would break the good things in his life. Anger flickered inside me. So he lied instead? He lied to everyone. Andrew nodded once, slowly. And the lies grew faster than he could keep up. I shut my eyes. The world felt too big. He loved you, Andrew said. I felt the words more than I heard them. He used to talk about how kind you were. How patient. How you made him feel safe. My jaw clenched. Then why wasn't that enough? Why did he need someone else? Why did he build a whole other life? Andrew sighed, a long, wounded sound. Because he was scared he didn't deserve the life he had with you. The room went fuzzy. I pressed my fingers to my forehead. This doesn't make sense, I whispered. None of this makes sense. Andrew slowly stood and walked to one of the larger boxes. He opened it gently, like he had done it 1,000 times. Inside were stacks of journals. He wrote everything down, Andrew said. Every fear. Every mistake. He looked back at me. And he wanted you to have them. My heart stopped. Me? Yes. He picked up one journal and held it out. He knew you would want the truth, even if it hurt. I stared at the journal, but didn't take it. My hands trembled. Why didn't he just tell me? I whispered. Because he was afraid you'd walk away, Andrew said. And losing you was the one thing he couldn't handle. The words slammed into me. A part of me hated how much they still hurt. Another part, deeper and more broken, knew they were true. I finally took the journal from him. The cover was worn. The corners bent. Inside the first page was a small note written in Michael's handwriting. For Emily. When I'm brave enough to let you know me. My breath hitched. I flipped to a page near the middle. The entry read, I'm going to tell her. I have to. She deserves honesty. But I don't know how to say I've made a mess so big I can't see the edges. My fingers tightened on the paper. Another entry. I wish I could be just one person. I wish I could be the man she thinks I am. Tears blurred the ink. Before I could read more, a loud bang hit the outside of the storage unit door. I froze. Andrew's eyes snapped to the noise. He straightened slowly. Another bang, harder this time. Someone was outside. Someone who knew we were here. Someone who wanted in. My heart raced. The metal shook again. Who is that? I whispered. Andrew's face tightened. I think, he said softly, that's someone who doesn't want you finding out the rest. The door rattled violently. Andrew stepped in front of me, shielding me with his body. Get behind the boxes, he whispered sharply. Now. I scrambled backward, clutching the journal and the baby shoe. My breath was sharp and fast. The storage unit suddenly felt too small, too dark. The metal latch strained again. A voice outside shouted, "Open the door." The door slammed so hard the entire unit shook, and a thin crack appeared in the metal frame. I gasped. Andrew whispered, "Run if it breaks." "Do you hear me? Don't look back." The door groaned. The voice outside growled one more warning. And then, with a sharp, metallic scream, the storage unit door began to peel open. The metal door screeched as it bent inward, the sound sharp enough to slice through my spine. Dust rained down from the ceiling, and the whole storage unit trembled like it was being peeled open by a giant hand. Andrew stepped forward with one arm out as if he could hold the door shut by sheer will. I held my breath, clutching the journal and the tiny baby shoe so tight the leather dug into my palm. The voice on the other side growled again, deep, impatient, and far too close. "Open the door." It wasn't a voice I recognized. It wasn't Michael's. It wasn't Mr. Reynolds. It wasn't any neighbor or face from the funeral. It had a sharp edge to it, like someone used to demanding things and getting them. Someone who wasn't afraid to break whatever stood in the way. Andrew didn't move. "Stay back," he whispered over his shoulder. My legs refused to obey. Fear turned them stiff, like they belonged to someone else. The journal shook in my hands. I crawled behind a stack of boxes anyway, pressing myself into the darkest corner I could find. My heart beat so hard I could almost hear it echo off the metal walls. The door bent again, harder this time. A hand, thick, rough, and gripping the metal like a handle, appeared through the widening gap. Andrew inhaled sharply. "We don't want trouble," he called out. A low laugh answered him. Not warm, not friendly. A humorless noise that chilled the air. Too late for that. The hand yanked again, and the crack opened wide enough for a shoulder to force through. A tall man shoved his way inside, his face hidden beneath the shadow of a cap pulled low. He wore a black jacket, heavy boots, and eyes that scanned the space with sharp, hungry calculation. His gaze stopped on Andrew. "You shouldn't be here," the man said. Andrew's jaw tightened. "Neither should you." My stomach dropped. They knew each other. Not well, maybe, but enough. "Where's the journal?" the intruder asked. My fingers clenched around it so hard the pages bent. Andrew stepped sideways, blocking the man's view of me. "You need to leave. She doesn't know everything yet." The man scoffed. "Exactly. And she shouldn't." He took one step forward. Andrew matched it with one backward step, still keeping himself between us. "She deserves the truth," Andrew said. "She deserves peace," the man snapped. "You want to destroy what's left of her life?" "She deserves honesty," Andrew yelled, louder, firmer. "Honesty." The word cracked something inside me. The man's eyes flashed. "Michael trusted me. He gave me instructions. And you're breaking every one of them." "Michael trusted too many people," Andrew said through his teeth. That sentence hit me like a dull punch. Too many people. The man lunged. Andrew moved fast, faster than I expected for someone his age, grabbing the man's arm and shoving him into the metal wall. The door rattled violently as they collided. A box fell off a shelf and burst open, spilling papers everywhere. My breath hitched as I tried to make myself invisible behind the tumbling cardboard. The intruder swung an elbow. Andrew blocked it with a grunt. "Emily," Andrew shouted. "Run if you can." I couldn't move. Every muscle in my body locked. My feet stayed glued to the floor, my brain screaming at them to go, but my body refusing. The man shoved Andrew backward, hard, sending him crashing into a stack of boxes. Papers and small items scattered like confetti. "I told him you'd ruin everything," the man growled. The world seemed to shrink. Everything pressed closer, the walls, the boxes, the air. "Who are you?" I cried out before I could stop myself. Both men froze. The intruder turned his head toward my voice. His eyes found me. And in that instant, I knew one thing. He recognized me. His expression shifted, not surprised, but irritated, like someone seeing an obstacle they thought they'd never have to deal with. He took a step toward me. Andrew shoved him back, blocking him again. Leave her alone. She shouldn't know, the man hissed. It was supposed to die with him. My breath caught. Die with who? I asked, my voice trembling. The man glared. With Michael. The name felt like a punch. Andrew stepped closer to me, shielding me with his body. Emily, listen to me. Michael was afraid. Afraid of what this man knew. Afraid of what would happen if the wrong people learned the truth. My pulse hammered. What truth? I whispered. The intruder laughed, cold, amused, sharp. She still doesn't get it. I swallowed. Get what? He nodded toward the baby shoe in my hand. And my stomach turned. Andrew quickly put an arm out to keep him back. Don't. But the man smirked, leaned forward, and spoke anyway. Michael didn't just have another woman. His voice dropped lower. He had another family. My vision blurred. The world tilted. My breath stopped mid-inhale. No, that wasn't real. That wasn't possible. We don't know that for sure, Andrew said sharply. Stop talking. The man ignored him. And he had a reason to keep them hidden. A reason he didn't tell you. My knees trembled so hard I felt them give. I stumbled back and braced myself against the wall, the journal pressed to my chest like it might stop my heart from breaking open. My voice barely came out. Why would he hide something like that? The man shrugged. Because if you found out, everything would fall apart. And Michael couldn't afford that. Not with what he was trying to protect. What was he protecting? I whispered. This time, the man didn't smile. This time, he looked serious. Money, he said. A lot of it. My mind blinked. Money? I shook my head. Michael wasn't wealthy. He was a school counselor. We paid our bills. Barely. The man gave a slow, heavy sigh. He didn't tell you because telling you would have put you in danger. My heart skipped. Danger? What danger? Andrews stepped forward, voice firm. Stop. She doesn't know enough yet. She doesn't know anything, the man snapped. And that's the problem. He pointed at the journal. That thing? It's not just memories. It's evidence. Names. Dates. Accounts. Things people would kill to bury. My breath caught in my throat. Michael? My Michael? Involved in what? I felt dizzy. The edges of my vision darkened. He wasn't who you thought he was, the man said, softer now. He wasn't a villain. But he wasn't innocent either. My body froze. The world grew quiet. Then boom. A loud explosion of sound hit the storage unit door. Someone else was outside. The intruder stiffened. They followed me. Andrew sucked in a breath. We need to get her out. The man turned sharply to me. Give me the journal. I shook my head violently. No. His face hardened. Emily, if you don't give it to me, they'll take it. And if they take it, you're done. You understand? Done. Boom. Another slam. Dust shook loose from the ceiling. Andrew grabbed my arm. Go through the back wall. What back wall? I stammered. He pointed behind me. The panel. It slides. Michael made it when he was 17. My heart pounded. I rushed to the wall, found the thin seam behind the boxes, and shoved my fingers into the gap. It moved. The panel slid open with a rusty groan, revealing a narrow hallway behind the units, a service tunnel used by employees. Go, Andrew urged. Now. Boom. The main door bent inward even further, near bursting. Emily, run. Andrew shouted. I clutched the journal, the envelope, and the tiny baby shoe. My lungs felt like fire. I crawled through the gap, stumbling into the darkness of the tunnel. As I slipped inside, I saw the intruder turn toward the breaking door and mutter. They weren't supposed to find us this fast. Then the storage unit burst open. I screamed. The last thing I saw before Andrew shoved the panel shut behind me was a group of shadowy figures rushing in, their faces hidden, their voices sharp and commanding. Then the panel sealed with a final click. Darkness swallowed me. I crouched in the narrow tunnel, shaking, listening to the chaos on the other side of the wall, shouts, boxes falling, the metallic clang of something hitting the ground. Then, silence. Heavy, thick silence. I didn't move. Couldn't move. Could barely breathe. When footsteps finally echoed in the tunnel, soft, slow, coming closer, I held the journal tighter. A shadow appeared at the far end of the hallway. A silhouette. Moving toward me. Not running. Not panicking. Just walking. Deliberate. Steady. The figure stepped into the thin strip of light filtering in from a distant vent. And I froze. Because I recognized the face. Someone I had never expected to see here. Someone who should not have known anything about any of this. Someone who looked straight at me and whispered, "Emily, we need to talk." The figure stepped closer, their face slowly becoming clear in the thin strip of dusty light. My breath caught in my throat. I had imagined many people, Mr. Reynolds, Sarah, even that shadowy man who tried to force the storage door open. But not her. My best friend. The one person I trusted when my world first began to shake. Lisa. She stood in the narrow service hallway with her hands raised gently in front of her, palms open, like she knew any sudden movement might break me completely. Her eyes were soft, but something about them felt different now, heavier, more knowing than when she brought me tea or hugged me at my kitchen table. "Emily," she whispered again, "we need to talk." I stumbled backward until my shoulders hit the cold metal wall. My voice barely came out. "Lisa? How are you here?" She took a slow step forward. Not threatening. Not timid. Controlled. "I followed you," she said quietly. "Not to scare you. To make sure you were safe." My heart hammered. "No. That doesn't make sense. Why would you follow me here? How did you even know where I was?" She exhaled a long, worn sound. "Because I've known more about Michael than I ever told you." The hallway suddenly felt too small, like the walls were inching inward. "What does that mean?" I whispered. Lisa looked down, like she was choosing her words carefully. "I didn't want to hurt you. Not while you were grieving. Not when you were drowning already." My throat tightened. "You knew about the other woman?" She closed her eyes. "Yes." It felt like someone punched the air out of my lungs. "We worked at the same school," Lisa said softly. "We saw him with her a few times. Some of us thought it was innocent. Others," she sighed. "Others knew it wasn't. But nobody wanted to be the one to break your heart." Anger and betrayal churned inside me like two storms colliding. "You should have told me," I said, shaking. "I know." Her voice cracked. "I know, Emily. And I'm sorry. But that's not the only reason I followed you." She stepped closer, her expression tightening. "You're in danger." My chest froze. Lisa continued, her voice barely above a whisper. "Those men who broke into the storage unit? They're not after you. They're after what Michael left behind." The journal in my hands suddenly felt heavier. "Lisa," I said, my voice trembling, "what is this? What was he involved in?" She took another careful step, the dim light outlining her silhouette. "Michael was part of something he shouldn't have been part of. Something that started before he met you. Something that got worse when he tried to fix it." My heart thudded. "Fix what?" "Money," Lisa said. "Large sums. Moved between accounts. Hidden. Protected. Some of it belonged to the wrong people. Some of it belonged to the right people who trusted the wrong people." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "No. Michael would never. He helped kids. He was good." "He was good," Lisa said, her voice fierce for the first time. "But good people make terrible mistakes. And he made one he couldn't undo." My breath came fast. "This has to be a mistake. He would have told me." She looked at me with a sad, almost pleading expression. "He wanted to. But he thought telling you would put you in danger." A heavy silence sank between us. Then Lisa spoke again, quieter. "He left that journal for a reason. But the people who want it, they're not going to stop. They think you know more than you do." The metal wall behind me felt icy. "I don't know anything," I whispered. "I believe you," she said. "But they won't." For a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence hummed in the narrow corridor, broken only by my unsteady breathing and the faint echo of distant footsteps from somewhere deep in the facility. Then Lisa reached into her pocket. I flinched backward instantly. She froze, palms up. "It's not a weapon." Slowly, she pulled out a folded piece of paper. She held it between two fingers like proof of innocence. "This was in Michael's desk at school. I found it when they cleaned out his office. I didn't give it to the police. Or Mr. Reynolds. Because I didn't know who to trust. My fingers shook as I took the paper. It was old. Soft around the edges. And in the center, written in Michael's handwriting, was a single line. If she finds the truth before I can tell her, protect her. My throat closed. He wrote this about me? Lisa nodded. He knew the danger was coming. He just didn't know when. A sharp noise echoed from behind us, a distant clang from deeper in the service corridor. Lisa's eyes darted over my shoulder. They're still here, she whispered. We don't have long. Fear crawled up my spine. Lisa gestured down the tunnel. There's another exit behind Unit 6. It opens to the back alley. We need to go now. I didn't move. My feet were anchored by fear and mistrust. Emily, she said, stepping closer, her expression pained. Please. I'm trying to help you. I wanted to believe her. God, I wanted to believe her. But trust felt like a thin sheet of ice under my feet. Why were you really at my house the day after the funeral? I asked suddenly. She startled, just a flicker, but I saw it. I told you, she said softly. To check on you. No, I shook my head. There was something else. You stayed too long. Asked too many questions. You were nervous. Lisa's eyes lowered. Her voice softened into something almost broken. I needed to know what Michael left behind. My lungs tightened. What he left behind? I echoed. She nodded slowly. The letter. The envelope. Mr. Reynolds told me he gave it to you. And if there was one, there could be more. Cold raced through me. Lisa's lips trembled. I didn't want you to get hurt because of what he did. And I didn't want his mistakes to swallow you too. I didn't know what to believe anymore. Another clang echoed through the metal hall, closer this time. Lisa's head whipped toward the sound. They found the tunnel, she whispered. My heart froze. Emily, she said quickly, her voice fierce with urgency. If they catch us, that journal will be gone, and everything Michael tried to protect will be torn apart. You have to move. Now. But before I could answer, a shadow appeared at the far end of the tunnel. A tall figure. Then another. And another. Their footsteps were slow. Heavy. Deliberate. Coming straight toward us. Lisa grabbed my wrist. Run, she breathed. Please run. I didn't move. I couldn't. Because the lead figure stepped into the sliver of light, and my entire body went cold. It wasn't the man from before. It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't someone dangerous from Michael's secret life. It was someone I knew. Someone who should never have been part of any of this. Someone whose face twisted in a way I'd never seen. He stepped closer, and my mouth dropped open. Because standing there, in the dark, narrow hallway, was Mr. Reynolds. Michael's lawyer. The one who gave me the letter. The one who said I should wait to read it. The one who insisted Michael wanted everything handled properly. He looked at me with a calm, chilling expression. Then he said, Emily, give me the journal. And behind him, several shadowy men closed in, blocking every exit. The extreme event slammed into me like a wave. Mr. Reynolds was part of it. Part of the lies. Part of the danger. Part of the secret Michael died with. And now, he was coming for me. Mr. Reynolds stepped fully into the light, the men behind him fanning out like shadows peeling off the walls. His calm face didn't match the fear that locked my body in place. I clutched the journal to my chest, breathing hard, my fingers digging into the cover as if I could pull strength from Michael's handwriting. Lisa moved in front of me instantly, arms spread wide like a shield. Don't come any closer, she warned, her voice trembling but brave. Mr. Reynolds didn't slow. You shouldn't have followed the trail, he said, almost disappointed. Michael trusted me to handle things cleanly. Handle what? I asked, my voice hoarse. His secret family? His money? His lies? No, Mr. Reynolds said, his expression tightening. The people he was tied to. The accounts he was holding. The money he was protecting. He was never supposed to drag you into this. My chest squeezed painfully. Then why did you drag me into this? I whispered. You gave me the letter. He sighed. I did exactly what he instructed. But you weren't meant to read it yet. Not until we had secured the rest. The rest? My heart sank. The other journals, Lisa whispered. The accounts, Mr. Reynolds added. The truth, Andrew had said earlier. Pieces began snapping together inside my mind. Michael knew he was dying, I said slowly. He knew he wouldn't be able to hide everything forever. He wrote the letter because he wanted to finally tell me. Yes, Mr. Reynolds said. But he never finished. The silence felt like a heavy blanket pressing down on all of us. Then Mr. Reynolds raised a hand. Bring her the bag. One of the men behind him stepped forward and placed a small black duffel bag at Mr. Reynolds' feet. He nudged it toward me with his shoe. Open it, he said. Lisa tightened her hold on my wrist. Don't, she whispered. It's a trap. But something inside me, something exhausted, hollow, and desperate for the truth, forced my hands to unzip it. Inside the bag was another stack of journals. Michael's journals. Dozens of them. Each one marked by year. Each one carefully kept. Each one filled to the brim with handwriting I knew better than my own. My heart stopped. You had these all along? I whispered. They're evidence, Mr. Reynolds said. Evidence that would destroy certain people. Evidence he spent his life protecting. My voice cracked. What does this have to do with me? Mr. Reynolds stepped closer, and the men parted to make a path for him. Because he left everything to you, he said softly. Every account. Every key. Every password. Every ledger. Every list of names. I felt dizzy. He said you were the most honest person he knew, Mr. Reynolds continued. He said you'd do the right thing with his mess. Even if it killed him. Tears filled my eyes so fast my vision blurred. He loved you, Mr. Reynolds added gently. Even when he was lying. Even when he was failing. Even when he was hiding things you deserved to know. I dropped my gaze. The words hurt. They healed. They shattered me again. But I can't let you keep all of this, he said suddenly, his voice turning sharp. That journal in your hands, that one is the most dangerous. Lisa stepped forward before I could react. You're not taking anything from her. Mr. Reynolds shook his head. Lisa, move aside. This has nothing to do with you. But Lisa didn't move. She trusted you, she said, voice shaking. She trusted all of you. And you used her grief. Mr. Reynolds's jaw clenched. And I will do it again if I must. Hand over the journal, Emily. I hugged the journal tighter. No. His eyes darkened. Emily. No, I said again, louder this time. My voice echoed down the metal hallway. Michael left this for me. Not for you. Not for them. Me. For the first time, Mr. Reynolds looked angry. Then you leave me no choice, he said quietly. He lifted his hand. A man behind him stepped forward, but before he could reach me, a loud siren erupted overhead. The men froze. Lisa's eyes widened. Mr. Reynolds cursed under his breath. Suddenly, bright white lights flooded the corridor from behind us, cutting through the dimness like lightning. Loud voices followed. Police. Everybody freeze. My breath caught. Police? How? The men behind Mr. Reynolds reached for their pockets, but it was too late. Officers flooded the tunnel from both ends. Flashlights glared. Commands echoed. Guns lowered but ready. Mr. Reynolds lifted his hands slowly, fury tightening his face. Behind him, the men who had followed him out of the storage unit dropped to their knees as officers barked orders. I stared at the scene, stunned, trembling, unable to understand what was happening. Someone grabbed my hand. Not Lisa. Not Mr. Reynolds. A familiar deep voice whispered behind me. Emily, keep your head down. I turned. It was Andrew. He was covered in dust. His shirt was torn. But he was alive. How did? I began. I called them, he said. I ran when the panel closed. Found a security guard who recognized me from years back. We locked the facility down. I told them you were in danger. Tears filled my eyes. You came back for me. He nodded. Your family. No matter what Michael did. Police handcuffed Mr. Reynolds. As they led him past me, he met my eyes, not with anger, but with something like regret. You shouldn't have been part of this, he murmured. I swallowed hard. You made me part of it. He lowered his gaze. And then he was gone. Within minutes, the tunnel cleared. Officers helped me outside into the cold evening air. Red and blue lights flashed across the storage yard. I clutched the journal to my chest, the baby shoe tucked into my pocket, the envelope still folded tightly in my hand. Lisa wrapped her arms around me. "I didn't tell you everything," she whispered. "And I should have. But I promise, I never meant to hurt you." I nodded weakly. I didn't have the strength to sort through forgiveness yet. But I didn't pull away. Andrew sat beside me on the curb. "I knew he loved you," he said quietly. "He talked about you like you were the only part of his life he hadn't ruined." I looked down at the journal. "When my husband passed," I whispered, "I thought the letter was the worst thing I would ever read." Andrew nodded gently. "I know. But now—" I opened the journal. "I think this is the real truth. The full truth he never got to tell me." Inside the cover, in Michael's careful handwriting, was a final note. "Emily, if you're reading this, I failed twice, once in honesty, once in courage. But I never failed in love. Please forgive the man I was. Please protect the people I hurt. Please do what I couldn't." Finish the story. My chest cracked open. I finally cried, not fast tears, not angry ones, but a deep, aching sob from a place inside me that had carried too much for too long. Andrew put an arm around my shoulder. Lisa held my hand. Pepper rubbed against my leg, purring softly. And for the first time since Michael died, I breathed without feeling like the world was collapsing. I wiped my cheeks, closed the journal, and stood up. "What are you going to do?" Lisa asked softly. I looked at the flashing police lights, at the tunnel, at the evidence in my hands, at the mess Michael left me to clean, at the life I still had left to live. "I'm going to finish the story," I said. "And then, I'm going to start a new one. With honesty, with healing, with boundaries, with strength, and with the understanding that love, real love, cannot survive behind locked doors and half-truths." As the last police car pulled away, the night sky finally felt wide again. And for the first time, so did my future.